The budget reconciliation infrastructure bill is being crafted, and as that is happening, we are seeing a partially public but mostly behind the scenes fight between at least two different factions who have very different ideas of how big that bill should be, what the price tag should be, and what it should actually include. So you have Senator Bernie Sanders and you have corporate Democrats like Senator Joe Manchin, and their relationship is apparently non-existent right now. Asked about the relationship between the two, a former Manchin aide added, "There is no relationship, they do not talk." And you can sort of understand why. Right now, Joe Manchin pretty much has no interest in the reconciliation bill. He's focused on the so-called bipartisan bill, which is much friendlier to corporations via privatization, things like that. It doesn't include a lot of what was originally hyped up about the infrastructure bill that is now being shunted to the reconciliation bill. Things like the expansion of Medicare to include dental and vision, child tax credits, mandatory paid family leave, free community college, anything having to do with climate change and that sort of thing. So Manchin has recently been signaling that he is actually not in favor of the reconciliation bill at the size it's been discussed for several months. In response, Sanders says that he could kill the bipartisan bill by marshaling House progressives. And he wanted to know if Manchin would support the $3.5 trillion spending package that would cement Sanders' legislative legacy. Manchin's mad about that. He says, he's quoted as saying, "Hell no, Bernie, I'm not voting for $3.5 trillion." And then he says, speaking of Bernie, well, at least you're honest with me. And so look, the thing that's most frustrating about this is everything about Joe Manchin, but in particular that he's now saying he would be in favor of something like maybe 1.5 trillion, when and I cannot believe how many times I've had to bring this screenshot up. When the bills were initially announced months and months ago, Joe Manchin wanted to act like he was a bigger thinker than Joe Biden. He was bolder than Joe Biden, and he was calling for up to $4 trillion in infrastructure spending. Now, 1.5 million should be considered something like a fever dream almost. And so the details are being hashed out right now. We don't know exactly how big it's gonna be. We don't know how they're gonna pay for anything because lobbyists, including Heidi Heitkamp, people dispatched by the Chamber of Commerce, are trying to take out every possible tax increase whatsoever. And so that's basically where we're at right now.
Yeah, so they are the representatives of the two wings of the Democratic Party. Joe Manchin is the corporate wing. He proudly goes to the National Association of restaurants right after voting against minimum wage. The restaurants didn't want minimum wage. Right after the vote, Manchin goes there and collects checks. He believes in legalized bribery. He gave one of these statements about how the bill has to be lower and not deal with fossil fuels at all. After he went to the Chamber of Commerce, he's brazen about it.
The $1.5 trillion quote was at a luncheon for the Chamber of Commerce.
There you go. I mean, the NASCAR jackets wouldn't do it because all of his sponsors wouldn't fit on there, okay? And so he is purposely and obviously corrupt. But this just goes back to the thing that I harp on, and for good reason. We've seen that headline 1,000 times, right? It's clear, there's no question about it, he said it, right? No, everybody in media has collective amnesia. No one has ever asked them, hey, didn't you just say $4 trillion just a little while back? So why are you saying 1.5 trillion now? Can you please explain yourself? No one has asked them that. No one ever talks about it. No one ever mentions it in an article. No, it's okay. The corporate orders have been given. We all ignore everything that was said before. We do only things that help corporations. Gee, I wonder if it makes a difference that they're all multi-billion-dollar corporations that run the media. And then the people in the media go, oh, that's conspiratorial. You think multi-billion-dollar corporations want to make a profit? Yeah, I think that's the whole point, isn't it? Right? So that's kind of how it works. And Sanders is of course, the leader of the progressive movement. And here, now they mention in this article in particular that John referenced, that Bernie drew the line at $15 minimum wage and Manchin drew the line at $11 minimum wage. No, Manchin didn't draw a line at $11 minimum wage. He voted against increasing the minimum wage. He never passed the $11 minimum wage. He never did anything for any minimum wage at all, okay? And secondly, to be honest, because that's what we do on this program, because we actually believe in news and journalism, Bernie didn't push for the $15 minimum wage. He's pushed for it his whole career, but in that COVID relief bill, He had to be nudged into even proposing it as an amendment, and he purposely did not fight for it. So I'm not, look, that's a criticism of him that I had in the past. I'm just bringing this up here because that was a clear case where Bernie did not fight. But in this case, he is fighting. So I'm telling you right now, the guy who called him out last time, me, is telling you on this one, he's drawing the line. And they painted it like Bernie always draws. Bernie never draws a line. Like this is like the first time I've seen him say, no, 3.5 trillion, right? And normally with colleagues, he's like, oh, right? But here in this case, he's like, no, 3.5 trillion. Now, is he gonna give on that? Probably, okay? Because corporate Democrats are stronger and leadership agrees with them. And then all of the media agrees with them. And they're gonna put a world of pressure on Bernie and AOC and the others. So understand how that's how it's gonna play out. But I have a prediction on if they're gonna do something and what the number is. I'll get to that in a sec. But I wanna give you Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's quote too, because this shows you, this is a whole new world. My whole life, whatever progressives were in Congress, would always bow down to the corporate Democrats, always. Unquestioningly, there'd never even be a fight and they would preemptively surrender. And it drove me nuts, okay? And that's part of the reason I, along with others, started the Just Democrats. So now AOC, the most spectacular win of the Just Democrats, she said this: nothing would give me more pleasure than to tank a billionaire dark money, fossil fuel, Exxon lobbyist drafted energy infrastructure bill if they come after our childcare and climate priorities. So that she's saying, oh, you don't want to pass our $3.5 trillion bill? The one that Manchin did for $1 trillion, it's actually $500 billion with the Republicans and ExxonMobil? I'll kill it with pleasure. I've never seen anything like that. Okay, so thank God, finally, the fight is here.
I constantly think about like how some of these politicians stay in office after the conditions of the people where they rule never changing. And I've come up with this belief of mine that the American people, like many of them, have Stockholm syndrome, like worthiness issues, and don't think that they can do better. And that is why these same people who have been in office for a long time continue to be there and work on behalf of corporate America and not care or give a damn about the American people. When you think about, like recently what has been happening in terms of the planet, the weather, right? You've seen, I was in New York where the night of my special, that was the most rain the Bronx had in history, and it was flooded. I came to flood the Bronx, is what I was told. But I can't help but to think about the people of that community, the black and brown people and the white poor people, and the people who live in that community who don't have the access to things that these clowns in office have. There's no flood, there's no such thing as a flood that will last more than a couple of hours because they have the resources to get it handled. And I just think that people don't really understand what these types of fights mean for the communities who are affected the most by all of the ills of the world. And so I always try to use these as an opportunity to remind people that you have to vote out these clowns that don't care about you, even if they call themselves Democrats, even if they call themselves progressives. If their agendas don't match up with your needs, you gotta get them out of there, because look at the argument that these people are having, and these trickle down to being basic needs for people who don't have privilege and wealth in this country, and it is so frustrating.
Yeah. Let me do a prediction, guys. So for a long time, we've been wondering what's going to happen. There's the two bills, right? They keep calling $1 trillion, drives me crazy. Half of it is old money that was already passed. But let's go with it. There's $1 trillion bipartisan bill. That's the ExxonMobil corporate funded bill that AOC is referring to. So that's already passed the Senate. And then there's a $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, which is also infrastructure, but is a little bit broader. That's the one that the Democratic Party, not just AOC and Bernie Sanders, but Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, they all say they're behind that, right? And the progressives are saying, we will not do the $1 trillion one if you don't do the $3.5 trillion one. And we're drawing the line, and their line is very clear. And the corporate Democrats are saying, we don't want to do the other one. You need to pass the $1 trillion one and then shut up about it, right? So in the old days, I know exactly what would have happened. And I've told you this on the show, and on this, on legislative issues, we're almost never wrong, okay? They would have passed the $1 trillion version, and they would have killed the 3.5, and they would say, oh, we ran out of time, put pressure on the progressives, you guys are, and you guys are hurting the country, and you're hurting your own voters, and you're the worst, and how dare you criticize other Democratic colleagues, and that's all they would have done. But here, as we told you throughout, the dynamic is changing. Pelosi is seeming to join the progressives in such starkly clear terms publicly that it would hurt her reputation if she doesn't pass it. And that is very new and different, okay? And among many other things. And so I couldn't figure it out. What are they gonna do? Normally they would kill us. So now I think after this latest round, I got it. They are gonna do the reconciliation bill because otherwise, no, AOC, Bernie, and the rest are not joking. They will not pass the $1 trillion bill. And if they're not gonna pass the $1 trillion bill, the infrastructure bill, then Biden has got to have it. He can't not have it. Pelosi and Schumer can't not have it. They must pass the reconciliation bill. But are they gonna do $3.5 trillion? No way. And so my guess is they will negotiate it down as far as they can go, and that'll probably be around $2 trillion. And here I'll throw out a number, 2.1, okay? Just for fun. And then the progressives will be super mad, and they'll cut out a bunch of the climate stuff, if not almost all of it. They'll gut really important parts of it, but then everybody will turn in their fury again and do the old tactic of, what the hell, we're giving you another $2 trillion, you gotta pass it. Oh, you guys are the worst, you're costing the country. And at that point, my guess is Bernie and the others will begrudgingly say yes. That's my guess, I have no inside information on it, right? But based on what I know about politics, that looks like that's where this train is headed. And so, and by the way, guys, you should be super proud of yourself if you're a TYT viewer. And I'm not just saying that, it's absolutely based in fact. The TYT viewers raised $2.5 million for Justice Democrats in 2018 when no one, no pundit, no expert in the country thought any of those candidates had any chance at all. But you guys made that miracle happen. You were among the people who made it happen. Of course, the candidates were wonderful, okay? But without that seed money, I don't think they could have won. And so now those people are holding the line, and we might get an extra couple of $1 trillion to help the American people because of what you did. Isn't that amazing? And if you were a volunteer for any of those campaigns or you donated to any of those campaigns, you should be incredibly proud of what you've done. Thank you. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.